Christmas morning is supposed to feel warm. Not the forced kind of warm, real warmth. The kind that comes from knowing where you belong. That's what I told myself as I stood in the doorway of the empty house, holding my daughter's coat while the heater rattled like it was arguing with itself. She looked around once, then again. "Mom," she asked softly, "where's everyone?" I didn't answer right away, because the truth was heavier than any lie I could think of. My family had said there was no room at the table this year. Not because the house was small, not because the chairs were taken, but because, apparently, we were. My name is Hannah Moore. I was 35, a remote customer success manager, single, rebuilding my life one careful decision at a time after a divorce that left me with more resilience than savings. My daughter Lila was 8, quiet, observant, and still young enough to believe adults meant what they said. 3 weeks earlier, I'd called my mother to confirm Christmas plans. She'd paused before answering, the way she always did when something had already been decided without me. "It's just complicated this year," she said. "We're keeping it small." Small, apparently, meant excluding us. My sister was coming, her husband, their kids, my parents. Even an uncle who complained about everything was welcome. But when it came to me and my daughter, suddenly the table was full. "We don't want it to be awkward," my mother added. Awkward. As if love could be measured by comfort. So I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just said, "Okay," and booked the cheapest place I could find within driving distance. An empty rental house meant for summer weekends, not Christmas mornings. Now we were here, alone, with a tree I'd picked up the night before and decorated with whatever we could find at the drugstore. The ornaments didn't match. The lights flickered unevenly, but Lila smiled anyway. "Can I open my present?" she asked, trying to sound excited. I nodded. "Of course." She tore the paper carefully, like she always did, and held up the book she'd been asking for all year. Her smile reached her eyes, but only for a second. Then she looked around again. "Are Grandma and Grandpa coming later?" she asked. I swallowed, hard. "No," I said gently. "It's just us today." She thought about that, too carefully for a child her age. "Oh," she said, "did we do something wrong?" That question landed harder than anything my family had said. I knelt in front of her, took her hands in mine. "No, never. This isn't because of you or me." She nodded, accepting it the way kids do when they trust you completely. But as she went back to her present, I felt something settle in my chest. Not sadness, not anger, but clarity. They didn't say there was no room because there wasn't space. They said it because they didn't want us there. And if this was how they treated us when things were calm and celebratory, I could only imagine what they'd do when it wasn't. This Christmas wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was the moment I finally understood something I'd avoided for years. Being invited isn't the same as being wanted, and my daughter deserved better than both. The house was too quiet, not peaceful quiet. Empty quiet. The kind where every sound feels bigger than it should. Footsteps echoing down hallways meant for laughter. The refrigerator humming like it's trying to fill the space. I made hot chocolate on the stove while Lila sat at the small table, legs swinging, humming the same tune over and over. I watched her more than the pot. She wasn't crying. That almost hurt more. "Mom," she said suddenly, stirring her marshmallows, "is Christmas still special if it's just 2 people?" I smiled, but it felt thin. "Of course it is." She thought about that. "I like it when there are more people." "I know," I said softly. I didn't tell her that I liked that too, or that I used to try so hard to earn it. After breakfast, I checked my phone for the first time that morning. Photos had already started appearing. My sister's kids in matching pajamas, my parents' dining table fully set. A caption from my mother, "So grateful for family." I stared at the image longer than I meant to. The table wasn't small, there was room, just not for us. Lila wandered over and peeked at my screen. "Is that Grandma's house?" I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket. "Yeah." "Did they forget we were coming?" she asked. That question was sharper than any accusation. "No," I said gently. "They didn't forget." She nodded slowly, absorbing that answer in a way that told me she understood more than she let on. Children always do. We went for a walk later, bundled up against the cold. The neighborhood was quiet, most families inside with food and noise and tradition. Lila kicked at the frost along the sidewalk, leaving little marks behind. "Mom," she said after a while, "next year, can we have people who want to come?" I stopped walking, not because of the question, but because of how calmly she asked it. Like she'd already accepted that wanting was the difference. "Yes," I said. "We can." She smiled, satisfied, and ran ahead a few steps. That was when I realized something painful and freeing all at once. She was watching how I handled this. Not just Christmas, but rejection, boundaries, self-respect. If I kept showing her that love meant accepting exclusion quietly, she would grow up believing that was normal, that she had to shrink herself to fit at other people's tables. I couldn't let that be the lesson she learned on Christmas morning. That afternoon, my phone rang. My mother. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. "Hi," she said, too brightly. "Just checking in." "Are you?" I asked. A pause. "We didn't think you'd take it so personally." "Personally." "You told us there was no room," I said. "On Christmas." "Well," she replied, "you know how things are. Your sister has the kids. Your father's been stressed." "So it wasn't about space," I said. "It was about priorities." She sighed. "Don't do this today." "I'm not doing anything," I said quietly. "I'm just noticing." Another pause. Longer this time. "We'll make it up to you," she said finally. "Maybe next year." Next year. As if my daughter's childhood ran on rain checks. "I won't be waiting," I said. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, looking at Lila laughing at something only she could see, "that I'm done teaching her that love is something she has to be invited into." My mother didn't respond, because for the first time she didn't have an answer ready. I hung up before she could find one, and as the sun dipped lower and the empty house filled with the soft glow of our mismatched lights, I understood something with absolute clarity. This Christmas wasn't about what we'd lost. It was about what I was no longer willing to accept. The rest of Christmas passed gently, too gently. Lila colored at the table while I cooked dinner we ate off mismatched plates. We played a board game she'd brought from home, laughed when the pieces kept falling over, pretended this was exactly how the day was supposed to look. But beneath every moment was the same realization, pressing louder as the hours passed. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't miscommunication, it was a choice. And choices have consequences. That night, after Lila fell asleep curled under a blanket on the couch, I sat alone with my laptop open and the house finally quiet. Not the hollow quiet from earlier, a different one. Focused. Intentional. I didn't scroll, I didn't spiral, I didn't reread messages looking for hidden meanings. I made a list. Things I had been postponing because I was still hoping to belong. I started with practical steps. I removed my parents as emergency contacts, updated my will, changed the pickup permissions at Lila's school, moved important documents into a folder they'd never had access to. Each click felt like sealing a door I'd spent years leaving ajar. Then I did something harder. I opened my email and searched my mother's name. Years of messages came up, invitations that arrived late, apologies that never quite apologized, reminders to be flexible, requests to not take things personally. Patterns I'd excused because calling them what they were felt too heavy. But tonight, with my daughter asleep under the same roof where she'd asked if Christmas still counted, the weight felt necessary. I wasn't cutting anyone off out of spite. I was choosing stability over proximity. The next morning, my sister texted, "Hope you guys had a good day yesterday. Sorry things were weird. Weird." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. We were fine, but next time, please don't tell my daughter there's no room if what you mean is no interest. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. That silence told me more than any apology ever could. When Lila woke up, she patted over to me, rubbing her eyes. "Can we make pancakes again today?" "Absolutely," I said. As I flipped them on the stove, she sat at the counter watching me. "Mom?" she said. "Yes?" "Do you think Grandma misses us?" I thought carefully before answering. "I think," I said, "some people miss the idea of family more than the responsibility of it." She nodded slowly. "Okay." She accepted that answer the same way she'd accepted everything else, with trust. And that trust demanded something of me. I realized then that my family hadn't just excluded us from a holiday. They'd given me a choice. I could keep waiting for them to make room, or I could build a table where my daughter would never wonder if she belonged. And once I saw that choice clearly, there was no going back. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about confrontation. It was about deciding that no invitation was worth teaching my child she was optional. And that decision, once made, changes everything. We left the rental house 2 days later. I swept the floors, stripped the beds, and packed the last of our things, while Lila carried her book from room to room like she was saying goodbye to a place that had taught her something important. Not sadness, not loss. Belonging doesn't come from numbers. On the drive home, she asked, "Are we going to Grandma's again soon?" I didn't answer right away. "Not for holidays," I said finally. "Not if it makes us feel small." She thought about that, then nodded. "Okay." No fear, no tears, just understanding. That was when I knew I'd made the right choice. In the weeks that followed, my parents acted as if nothing permanent had happened. A casual text here, a vague invitation there, always phrased as if time would smooth it over without accountability. I declined everyone, not with speeches, not with explanations, just with consistency. Because consistency teaches better than confrontation ever could. I hosted our own small dinner in January. Nothing fancy. A few friends, one neighbor, and Lila's favorite teacher who didn't want her to spend another holiday weekend alone. The table was crowded, mismatched, loud, and there was room. Lila noticed it too. She leaned over and whispered, "Everyone here wants to be here." "Yes," I said, "that's the rule now." My mother eventually called. Her voice was softer, cautious. "We miss you." I didn't doubt that she missed something. "I hope you're well," I said. "That's it?" she asked. "That's it." Because love doesn't require access, and forgiveness doesn't require proximity. What mattered was the lesson my daughter was learning. Every day we chose peace over permission. On Christmas Eve the following year, Lila helped me set the table in our own apartment. She placed each napkin carefully, counting chairs. "How many people are coming?" she asked. "Just us," I said. She smiled. "Good. There's enough room." She was right. There always had been. I watched her climb into her chair, humming softly, completely at ease. And in that moment, I understood something I wish I'd learned sooner. Family isn't who makes space when it's convenient. It's who never makes you question whether you belong. My daughter spent one Christmas in an empty house because my family said there was no room. She'll spend the rest of her life knowing she never has to earn a seat at the table. And that, more than any invitation I ever waited for, is the legacy I chose to give her.